And in the foreword of the book,
you're not going to edit that out, right? Because you were Scottish for 1 second, and I would
foreword of the
foreword of the book. You do not edit that out. You can't do it now. If I talk over,
no, I am
now you've addressed it.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to do callbacks later on, and you will never be able to get those out.
I'm so glad this show isn't live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special 2-year anniversary episode of The New Scene. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
And folks, you'll be delighted to know that just moments ago, I accidentally called the show The Northeast Scene again, and it was a beautiful throwback to the past.
Old habits die hard.
They certainly do. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us for this special bonus episode. And joining us for this special 2-year anniversary show, Dana Bollen, host of 2 Week Notice podcast, and he is the tour manager and official live hype man for Piebald. We talk podcasting. We talk Piebald. He tells how he met the band, which is an incredible story that you're going to hear. I really like it. And some other good ones. And we're not going to spoil it. We're going to let you hear it. So strap in for that. And we're here. We are here to celebrate, and we are very excited. Now,
Jesus.
folks,
I'm sorry.
when we started this thing, we didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And we didn't know what we were going to... All right, no, I'm not going to tell the whole origin story again. Look, you've heard it before. You know we started as the Northeast Scene. You know we did the podcast for about 1.5 years. But the big story for 2021 was, of course, the partnership with Iodine Recordings. You know, we started talking to Casey in summer of 2021. And by fall, the switch had happened and we became the New Scene. It was not something that we expected at all. It was a very pleasant surprise. And, you know, since that partnership has happened, since we got signed, and yes, we did get signed, Tommy.
You don't get signed to a podcast.
That's not a thing. You know, there was a guy that wrote to us and said that that didn't happen. He said signing a podcast is not a thing. Remember that letter, Tommy, that we got?
You tell Spotify and Joe Rogan that.
Well, look, the switchover happened, and we're very happy with it because Iodine Recordings is a fantastic label, and Casey has helped our show grow a whole lot. You know, listenership has gone up a lot. We're getting new and exciting guests. We will continue to get new and exciting guests. And yeah, I'm just really grateful, Tommy. I'm really grateful because I didn't expect it at all, and it's a pleasant surprise.
100%. It was definitely something that I remember when you first called me. I was like, "Wait, what's happening? Wait, like a record label? Why? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm into it."
I had the same reaction when I think I mentioned this on the show before. When Casey brought it up, I was just kind of like, I couldn't even process it. I was just like, no, like, what does he mean? No.
It didn't make sense to me at the time, and then I was like, oh, it's a partnership. Okay, got it. Never mind. Got it. But it really was, I never thought we'd be, let's just be honest, from the beginning of this, I didn't think we'd be doing this 2 years later. There's no way I thought it'd be 2 years later. And then on top of that, we've gotten to talk to some really incredible, amazing artists, musicians, novelists, photographers, and people that just genuinely contribute to art in general. And it's really cool that we get to talk to them. And we also love the fact that we get to tell funny stories about ourselves and personal things that we're working on, you know, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. I like that part of the show. You know, it's important to me, and other people seem to like it as well. I love doing this show. I love doing this show with you, Tommy, and I will take this opportunity to say once again that I wouldn't be able to do it without you because I would be too much of a nervous wreck.
Oh, and this would 100% not happen without you because I don't have the time to edit anything. And also, I don't have the patience. When I hear you talk about doing like the editing, all I say to myself is, there but for the grace of God goes I. Like, I'm so glad that that's not me, because I would be so frustrated with it. And on top of that, I would be up all night and then be miserable in the morning. And it just, it wouldn't be functional. Like, this is such a great partnership, because what I'm decent at, Keith is not. What Keith is amazing at, I'm good at. Like, we complement each other really well. And on top of that, we both just have the passion to do this. It's just fun. So without that, there's really no show. So I want to say thank you to you, because if you hadn't invited me to do this, I don't know what the fuck. Like, I would be listening to it with you, and I don't know, whoever else would have done it with you. Vadim? I don't know.
There you go. Well, yeah, it is a perfect partnership. We complement each other well. And like you mentioned, because of the way we're structured, everything just gets done. It's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. And yeah, I didn't think, I thought we were just going to do the show sometimes.
Yeah.
Whenever we could find an interview, we would do a show. But I love this system that we have. And even though it's a lot of work and editing can be stressful and all that stuff, blah, 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 I love it. It just fills up a lot of my time with something that I'm very passionate about. And I love it. So yeah, I think that's all we need to say, right? Did we forget anything for 2021?
No. Thank you, Casey. We thanked each other. The show's still rad. And I still hate Pop Culture Minute. So, yeah.
Well, it's never going away. And Tommy, I think 2021 is when we really found our footing as far as how we operate on the show. When I listened to some of the 2020 episodes and I listened back, I'm like, ugh, I didn't quite hit my stride yet. But when I look at the early guest list starting in 2021, Bill Sullivan, Phil Jameson, Jim Ward, again, all those episodes, I can listen to those episodes and not cringe.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I actually, there's so many times when I look at the thing, like the people that we had on, and it's like a lot of the first sets of guests we had were like, these are people, we have their phone numbers. Like, we can call them and be like, hey, what's up? You want to go get pizza? But it's also like we started getting people that were just like Phil Jameson. Like, I had no idea we were going to be able to get somebody from Caspian. Like, that just blew my mind. And then on top of that, he came on and was hilarious and funny and ingratiating, and just he brought Korn to the show. I don't know what else to tell you. Like,
oh, that was a yes.
So,
yes, Phil Jameson single-handedly made the podcast about Korn.
Indelible mark. Indelible. Like, there's no, you can't change that. We still bring up to other guests. Like, have you seen Korn at Woodstock 99? No? Take a moment. Just go watch it right now. Hold on.
Oh man. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Think about last year feels like even longer ago. COVID has just changed how time is perceived, and I think getting older, there's just some of that too.
100%. My concept of 2 years ago in my head, I'm going like, that was pre-pandemic, pre-shutdown, and it was such a tumultuous time because no one knew what was happening. But the best thing that I knew that made me so unbelievably happy was like, I get to stay at home with my family. And I know that some people are like, oh my God, I'm stuck with my family. In my head, I'm going like, I have a 5-month-old and 2 7-year-olds, or 2 6-year-olds at the time. This is going to be amazing. We're going to play all day. We're going to go for walks. We're going to go to the park. Like, we're going to do all this fun stuff. And it was every bit I imagined. It was great. It was fun. Bring on pandemic too. Let's go.
Well, in my Instagram story the other day, it came up, the video I posted inside the hotel room when we recorded the first 4 episodes. That blew my mind because that was pre-pandemic. And I remember being scared to death, just like I am every time before we record the show. And I was like, what am I doing? I don't know how to work any of this equipment. Like, what am I doing? And I'm so glad I didn't chicken out or abandon it, and that we went through with recording those first 4 episodes, because it brought us here today to where we are right now.
I also think there was a comment that I don't even know if this made it to the air, but like, if you and I had a hotel room in Center City 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it would have been a wildly different story than us recording a podcast and doing something productive. Like, it was literally like, I went down to the Wawa and got hot coffee and donuts and stuff for the guests that were coming in, and like
we had a whole spread and everything. I forgot about that.
I had a $50 gift card my mom gave me to Wawa, and I was like, I'm spending this shit. I'm gonna go get coffee for everybody. This is gonna be great. We're sitting there sipping coffee, like talking about hardcore, going, this is not it. This would have been a wildly different scene even 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it would. The only thing being recorded would be our fingerprints down at the local police district.
Yeah, there would have been a problem. But I had like that was such an interesting time because it was so new and we didn't know what it was going to be. And I think there's parts of it, like when I think back on the like totality of the show, there's still parts like 6, 7, 8 months in, we really kind of were honing what we were doing. And then until we had that conversation where we both kind of sat down and were like, we need to think about the structure of the show. We started thinking about in terms of what does this look like? What do we really ultimately, almost like a mission statement, like ultimately, what do we want the guests to get out of this? And what do we want the listeners to get out of it? And, kind of fixing, adjusting and moving along, and kind of the evolution of it is just, it's incredible. Like I kind of look back on it and I'm like floored that we did this.
Yeah, I think it's gotten a lot stronger. I think it has changed. I think it has changed, but for the better. It's gotten sharper, more precise. You know what I mean? The heart of it is still the same, but it's just delivered and packaged better.
Absolutely. Yep.
There you go. Well, listen, folks, enough about us for right now. Check back in with us in segment 3. We'll talk about what we're looking forward to in 2022 and beyond. But folks, right now, we are going to speak to Dana Bollen of 2 Week Notice Podcast. Enjoy. All right, folks, we're here now with Dana Bollen. Dana, welcome to the show.
Yo, what up?
It's great to have you here, Dana. It's wonderful to have you here to celebrate our 2-year anniversary as a podcast. And Tommy and I love talking about ourselves. We do. But to do a whole nother anniversary show of us recapping our history and all that stuff, it just sounds really boring, even to me. And I imagine it would be to the audience too. So what better way to celebrate than speaking to a fellow podcaster, huh?
Well, dude, it's an honor to be here. I don't know why you selected me. I'm not that cool, but I'm happy to be here. I appreciate it. And I enjoy your show very much, Keith and Tommy. So this is really cool for me. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And do you
thanks.
know why I selected you, Dana?
I that's what I was wondering. I really don't know.
Because you're like the first podcaster I've spoken to.
Cool. All right. I'll take it.
Yeah, because we were messaging the other week, and don't get me wrong, like I've spoken to other podcasters, but like like the podcasts in our circle, like all the podcasts that you see in the related searches and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're the first one I've spoken to. And I don't get to chop it up with any podcasters, so I thought this would be a great first chance to do so.
Cool, man. I'm down. Let's do it.
Yes, this is very exciting. So, now, folks, if you don't know, Dana is host of the 2 Week Notice Podcast. Dana, tell us a little bit about the show and how often it airs.
All right, man. Yeah. So let's see. It started in 2019, initially as a travel log. I was traveling around Europe by myself for like 4 months, and almost like Bill Burr style, I would wake up and be like, oh, I'm in Switzerland today. And I would talk for like a half hour about being in Switzerland or something. And, when I came home a couple months later, I went on tour with Piebald and Dashboard Confessional, and I kind of continued that like travel log. It was almost like a mini series, but like being on tour. And then right when we got back from tour, everything shut down. And I don't know, I still wanted to do podcasting. I was like, well, what better time to talk to people than right now? Well, who do I know? So I hit up Chris Carrabba because we had recently toured. And like a week later, he came on the show. And then it kind of snowballed from there, dude. Like I never really intended for it to be like a music interview podcast. It kind of just happened organically. You know, it just snowballed, and I've had a lot of musicians. We have some crossover guests, you know, like Travis, and I know you've had Chris Hornbrook, and I believe we had a couple crossovers.
Yes. How often does your show air?
Once a week. Lately, I've been putting out 2 a week, 1 to 2 a week, I'll say.
2 a week? How do you have the time to do that?
I don't. That's why it doesn't always happen. You know, it's a one-man show too. I wish I had more time to do that. It's not easy, dude. And even when it's once a week, it's like last minute. Like I'll be when we finish with this, I'm going to be up all night editing. I got Aaron David Tate of Minus the Bear.
Oh,
that's
nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't think people realize how long the editing takes. Once we're done an episode, it takes me, I think, 3 nights to edit it. And that's just for 2 hours. Well, just under 2 hours.
It's insane, man. Do you have any idea like how many combined hours that would be typically?
Let's see. Oh, if I okay. Sometimes I have to sit down and edit an entire episode in one day, and it usually takes me like 12 hours. And granted, you know, I take a lot of breaks and lay down a lot and whatever, eat. So I'm counting all of that 12 hours as editing time.
That makes me happy to hear that, because sometimes that's about as long as it takes for me. And sometimes I'm just like, is it me? Am I just slow? Like what, why does this take so much time? It's brutal.
Yeah, I'm slow, but I'm okay with that. You know, like I it's just my process. Now, so you start this podcast, and yeah, I imagine you have a lot of contacts of people you've toured with while out with Piebald and people that you know to get on the show, right? And that's got to make it great, because I think that's the hardest part of being a new podcast is finding guests.
Yeah, definitely. So all my guests, the music people, it's either someone I know, maybe I ran into on tour, or sometimes I just met him maybe once or twice, or like with Carabas' case, obviously we did like a full tour together. But I would say more often than not, it's kind of cold calling. Like I'll just send messages to people, and maybe I got their contact. Like maybe it's a friend of a friend, you know, in the scene, if you will. Or again, maybe it's just like a message, and I just kind of say, hey, you know, my name's Dana. I'm a big fan. I tour with the band Piebald. I also have a podcast. If podcasting is your thing, I'd love to talk to you. And I provide a list of the guests that I've had in the past, which also gives me a little street cred, I'm sure, you know, because if they're like, what's this podcast? I've never heard of it. It's like, they'll see, all right, this guy tours with Piebald, which most bands know of, or maybe they love the band themselves. And then they'll look at the list of guests I've had and be like, all right, this guy seems like the real deal. I'll talk to him.
I think about it like the guest. I'm like, if someone asked me on a podcast, what would I do? So the first thing I do is go to social media and see how that looks. And then I look at the guest list, and then I listen to the podcast to see what the audio quality is. And I think if all 3 of those things are good, then you have a pretty good chance.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So you said that, you know, you kind of got into the podcasting thing naturally through a sequence of events, but did you think like, oh, I want to do a podcast? Were you inspired by any other podcast or something else you listened to?
I mean, not really. Well, that's a good question. So essentially, when I was leaving for Europe, I was going by myself, and my buddy, he sent me a message. One of my best friends from high school. He's like, dude, you should do a podcast while you're over in Europe. Could be a fun way to keep in touch with people. And he sent me the Anchor app. I don't know if you've heard of that. So it's called Anchor, and you record the podcast on there, or you can, you know, drag files over and put them on the website, and Anchor will, you know, distribute your whatever. You create an episode, you build the episode on the website, and then Anchor will distribute it for you onto like most of the platforms. So as far as inspiration, being by myself, one of my favorite podcasts, and the first one I ever really listened to was Bill Burr's Monday Morning Podcast, and so I guess that was maybe my inspiration, because I kind of just would ramble, you know, if I was in Amsterdam or, you know, I don't know, Switzerland, whatever it was, like kind of his style, I guess you could say. So that would probably be my biggest inspiration. And then once I started interviewing people, I don't listen to it as much anymore. But when WTF by Mark Maron first came out and he was interviewing all those comedians, I like his interview style very much. So I guess those would probably be my 2 biggest initial inspirations, if that makes sense.
It does. You know, I can almost hear the Bill Burr podcast in my head right now without ever having heard it. Here, is this close? I can imagine. He's like, "Yeah, I'm in Amsterdam. Yeah, they got the red light district. What's going on with that? Yeah, am I close?"
Not too far off. Yes. Not bad.
Dana, are you a big comedy fan?
You know, I am. I guess define big comedy fan. I do love stand up comedy. Sure,
Who are your favorite comedians now?
like Bill Burr. Obviously, I think he's the king, man. It's like I feel like he's been wearing the crown for a while, which has been really cool because I've been a fan of his, since before he really blew up. So it's been really fun to watch him just get everything he deserves. But like in the last few years, I honestly have just been doing podcasts. So I've been so bad at keeping up with comedy. That's why I say I don't know if I'm the biggest fan at this time.
So you were talking about cold calling people and asking them to come on the show, and that's what we did and still do sometimes as well. Has this ever happened to you, Dana? Okay, you reach out to somebody, right? And you're like, "Hey, do you want to come on the show?" And they're like, "Yes." And then you're like, "Okay, here's the time, be there." And they're like, "Cool." And then they like ghost you. Has that ever happened to you?
I have been ghosted, but I've never gotten to the point where we worked out a time and day. And then I've had someone maybe last minute have to reschedule.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, there's probably one person that I'm still trying to reschedule with. But yeah, I've never been ghosted unless that it was before that step. You know what I mean? Like I've had people be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll totally come on." And then like you don't hear from them again. And they'll leave you unseen. And you're like, "Damn, you saw my message, bro." And then you're like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah, I would prefer if they just said no or just left me on scene, because then I know it's a no. Like, don't say yes and then give me extra work to do for nothing. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, but I try to keep in mind, I guess the whole world doesn't revolve around me and my podcast, I guess, but so I try to keep that into perspective and try to like remember, especially like these musicians and even more so now that touring is a thing again. I try to keep in mind that they got a million things going on or just maybe it's going to be the right time, I find, because a couple of guests I've had where I know other people are trying to get them and they can't. Maybe I just caught them at the right time. Maybe they're just a big Piebald fan or maybe a combination.
Yeah. I find that too. It's all about timing, and we came about right after the pandemic started as well, so a lot of people had downtime. So I think people were more willing to talk. It's just all about timing, really.
I agree. I had Matthew, the singer of Funeral for a Friend, on. Like, I love that band, and I messaged him, and he wrote back. He's like, "Honestly, I hate doing podcasts. I hate doing interviews, but I'm a massive Piebald fan, and you asked me really nicely, so you caught me at the right time." So I was like, "All right, cool." But I don't think he's really doing that stuff anymore. I think there was a small window there where he did maybe 3 of them, and I just caught him at the right time. But what about, I don't want you to name names, but like how often do you find that happens to you though? Like someone will agree to do it and then they kind of just bail.
It only happened once. I asked somebody, they said yes, so I sent all the follow-up details, and they didn't respond. So I thought, oh, I guess it's cool then, right? But they never showed up. So it's only happened one time. But it's okay. We'll get that person eventually, I'm sure. Now, Dana, how do you feel about other podcasters? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you communicate with them at all? Do you get competitive? Like, what is your view on the whole thing?
I hate them all of them, every single one of them, including you. No, I'm just kidding. Dude, I like podcasters. If it weren't for other podcasters, I wouldn't be here in the first place. I don't know, man. I don't find it competitive. I think I see it more as like we're all in this together kind of thing, because what's the use in maybe healthy competition. I might hear something someone does and be like, "Oh, that's a good idea." Maybe I should, I don't know, maybe it's something like reminding people to hit 5 stars and give me a review more often. Like, "Oh, I should be doing that every episode. That's a great idea." Or like there might be little things like that where, I might pick up little tips. And I think we all should be doing that from each other. And I think the more people work together, the better we will all be off, because podcasting is getting bigger and bigger every day, I think, and more people are listening to podcasts. So I think there's room for everyone, because, dude, like, someone might not like my podcast, but you know what? They might like yours, or vice versa. Or, that can like, some people. How many listeners does Joe Rogan have? Millions, a billion? I don't know.
5 million or something like that, I think.
So, I mean, but is he for everyone? No, but your podcast might be, or my podcast might be. So,
yeah, I'm just curious about how podcasters feel about other podcasters, because I don't talk to any, really. Like, you're one of the first that I've spoken to, Dana. So this is like exciting new territory.
Oh, right on, man. Yeah, I have a little network of people. Like, I met these dudes from Australia. Well, when I say meet, like, we met on Instagram or something. But, like,
Yeah.
Here's an example. So I had Matt Carter of Emory on my podcast, right? And he enjoyed the interview and the conversation so much that he put that episode on his feed. He has a podcast called Bad Christian. He used it as one of his episodes. And,
nice.
And on one hand, it's like, well, crap, I'm not getting the credit for those listens, but I really don't give a shit. Can I swear on here? I can swear on here, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, I don't give a shit about that, but someone might get upset about that. I don't know. But you know what? That drove more listeners to my show because they enjoyed that interview. And then I had these dudes from Australia hit me up. They're like, "Hey, I found your podcast through, the Bad Christian podcast, and now, like, I'm a fan of your show." And they happen to have a podcast. So I was on their podcast. And I think people have had me on their show, I don't know, at least I've been on maybe half a dozen of these, and I'm always honored when someone asks me, because, like, I'm a dude who likes to bring the more interesting dudes or dudettes to the platform. You know what I'm saying? So I enjoy interacting with other podcasters. We all learn from each other. That's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, me too. And I'm with you. There's plenty of room for everybody. There's plenty of podcasts for everybody out there. And I don't get competitive or anything like that anymore. I probably did a little bit in the beginning because it was really hard to get guests. Like, there were times where we thought the show was just going to be done because I'm like, well, we asked everybody and everybody has come on and no one else has said yes. So I guess we're done. But then, like, you'd get another message or someone would reply and it's like, okay, we're doing one more. But I think there's plenty of room for everybody. And I'm actually refreshed talking to you, Dana, because, like, this is cool. This is a first.
Yeah, man. I always like this stuff. But let me ask you this, dude. Do you find it a hard balance? Because what I struggle with at times, because there's always that fear, like you just said, it's like, well, if I don't have enough interviews scheduled or already recorded, then, like, I'm going to be stuck with zero. So I'll go through these phases where I'll just book a whole bunch. Like, I have, like, tomorrow I'm talking to Trevor from Unearth, and then the next day I'm talking to Cyrus from Newfound Glory, and then I have a couple next week, and I probably have, I don't know, half a dozen recorded. So now I'm overwhelmed on the other side, because I'm like, because it's like, I have some that are a few months old that I haven't put out, and then so it's like I want to always have some in the bank, but I don't want to leave people hanging and, like, have them be like, dude, where's my episode? Why didn't it come out yet?
Exactly. Yeah. You know what? We're in that territory now.
Yeah.
Where we have a bunch in the bank. And so what I do is I don't schedule new ones if we're too far behind. I just say we just have to wait. But I have to say, planning forward is so much easier than going week to week. Like, we used to just record every week and schedule every week and edit every week and post every week. Now that I think about it in retrospect, that's a lot more stressful than what we do now. Don't you think, Tommy?
Some of the times we've had a couple weeks, like, in the last month, where it's been like 3 interviews in a week, and that gets a little hectic. But the other part is now it's just like, okay, that one's in the bank. All we have to do is intro and outro for that one, and now we got a new episode. So I think it does give us a peace of mind, like, when we're ahead, but also at the same time, there's times when we interview people and things are time sensitive. Like, this is being released on such and such a date. It's like, fuck, this one has to go out by this day because the new album's coming out and it needs to be promoted. So it does put us in kind of a weird situation, but we also have ones that are kind of just generic. Like, let's just talk and have a good conversation. You don't have everything in the works? Cool. Let's have a conversation. And then when we need to use it, we'll use it.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And, I'll prioritize them based on, I always ask, do you have, or maybe I know, maybe they're coming on because they have an album coming out on a certain day or a tour kicks off at a certain day. So I'll always prioritize and kind of bump those up in the line as long as, and I ask them at the end of each episode, I'm like, hey, do you mind when this comes out? Like, do you want me to put it out at a certain time? And I don't know, maybe half the time they're like, oh, I don't care, whenever, but you don't want to wait too long, especially like, I think Travis is a good example. I recorded with him like last April, I think, on the most recent one he was on. And then I didn't put it out until like, I don't know, it was like June or July or something. So some of the stuff that we were talking about, things were much more in lockdown. So I had to, but no, it's not a big deal. But in the intro, I was just like, oh, we spoke a few months ago. So, if we were talking about the lockdown, that was why. So it's not the end of the world, but
Yeah, no, I feel that's happened to us too, and we just say whatever it is now, because we used to in the beginning we do this thing where we pretend like that we're still going to talk to them, even though we've already talked to them.
Yeah,
and then I was like, you know what, this is stupid. Let's just say we already talked to them and it was great. Like, I can't do this pretending thing. Just say what it is.
That makes sense, and I love the dynamic between you two, by the way. And I like it's cool. No, like even like the intros, because I had this thing. It's a different ballgame when you're by yourself. And I know there's some people, for example, I used to tell these bartending stories at the beginning of my episodes. And so, but dude, sometimes I would come and record the intro like right after I got out of a long bar shift. So I'd be all fucking fired up, dude. I'd be like, you know what this motherfucker did to me? I'll tell you. And I would just go off. And sometimes it's like a 10 to 15 minute intro, which I've had people reach out and say they love that. But I've also had people reach out and be like, dude, like your intro's too long, like blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. At the same time, like they can always just fucking fast forward. It's not a big deal. But someone once told me it was Chris Swinney. Chris Swinney, he does a similar podcast to us. It's called That One Time on Tour. Chris was in the Ataris and stuff. He's got a great show. But I had him on, and he told me a couple of things. For one, he told me, he's like, dude, podcasting is kind of like the Wild West, man. He's like, you can do an 8-hour episode as long as you got the memory for it in your hard drive. And also, he's like, people are going to listen to your podcast for one of two reasons, or a combination. It's either going to be for the guest and they're new to you, and the other is going to be maybe they're just a fan of you. So they're going to listen to every episode you do no matter what, regardless of whether or not they even know who the guest is, or for both. So the goal is probably to make those people, like win those people over, those new people who are there for the guest, and hopefully they stay.
Exactly. And I think that's dead on, because I listen not just for the interview, but for the person doing the interview. If I like them, like Howard Stern, I don't even listen to the interviews half the time. I just like to listen to them fight and argue with each other and all the shenanigans that go on.
Exactly. But with you guys, since we emailed, I listened to more episodes. I had listened to a couple in the past, but I listened to more to familiarize myself with you guys and with the show even more. And I found myself, I just kept going. I just kept going down the line. And I found myself, I'm like, I like these guys, not that I didn't before, but you know what I mean? I like the dynamic.
You know us better now.
Yeah. I mean, in that podcasting way, I like the dynamic between you two. I like in the outro too, you have a nice little conversation, and all of it is just really enjoyable. It's harder, I think. Lately, I've been with my intros. It's just been more business. Like I'll keep it like 3 minutes, and because I feel I get in my own head. I'm like, I don't want to drag this thing on. So I just kind of just jump right into it. And maybe it's because I don't have a second to bounce things off of. And I don't think, like I said before, from Chris Swinney, I don't think there is a right or wrong, but yours is enjoyable. I was so excited for the question, how are you doing today? You blew it. You blew it, Keith.
Oh,
we didn't do
man.
that. Oh, shit.
I didn't open with that. I went a little off script for this one.
It's okay.
Well, what's funny? I have it on my list right I have it on my list right here. I'm looking at it too. Dana, you've got to tell us, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Keith. How are you boys
What'd you
doing?
do? What'd you do?
Well, see, I should have brought it up because I didn't do anything exciting. So I got I've been doing these giveaways for the Piebald. So Piebald's album, We're the Only Friends We Have, just turned 20 years old. And we've been celebrating it on Instagram. And I have like 30 pieces of mail I got to send out, like 30 packages. So I've just been sorting them all out. So it's really nothing exciting. But point is, I like that you asked that on your podcast. It's like a really cool thing. I haven't heard that anywhere else, and it's awesome. And I feel like it breaks a barrier right away. I admire the way you guys do your show.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. And, if you listen to one and then listen to some more, I think that's a good sign, right, Tommy?
Oh, yeah. I think that's kind of the mark of something that when it's serialized like that, there's times where I've listened to a podcast for the person that's being interviewed and been like, I don't really feel the chemistry on this one. Like, so unless they have somebody else that I really want to listen to, like, I'm not going to stay with it. But honestly, that I appreciate that more than anything else, because Keith and I have been friends for a long, long time. There's sometimes where we start telling stories and we're like, is this something people really want to listen to? Like, do they care enough to hear a story about, like, us at the diner near our house? Like, but again, it comes back to, like, we really, really care about music and we love talking to people about music that they make. And I think it comes through in our banter and our back and forth.
I would agree, man. You can hear it. And yeah, you could just tell that you guys have been friends for a while. That stuff will come through, to the audience. Just like when you're watching a band on stage, I use Piebald as an example because I see them play all the time, but like you can tell that they're all like best friends, whether it's on-stage banter or just the way they look at each other and smile. It sounds corny, but it's true. And I think that's the case with a lot of bands that are on stage or podcasts, with more than one person or just one person to a guest. You can really feel it when someone's clicking versus maybe just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can recognize that there's a genuine kind of feeling that comes along with that, and that people can pick up on that really quickly. And especially if it's that fake type where they're trying to act genuine when you clearly don't have that rapport, you're like, never mind. Like, I'm checked out. I'm already checked out.
Right. Absolutely, man.
Do you listen to all the other podcasts, Dana?
What's all the other podcasts?
Like all the podcasts in our circuit to see what's up and like, that type of thing.
So, almost like the comedy thing, it's weird. I don't even have enough time, or I shouldn't say enough, as much time as I would like to listen to all the podcasts. But I can say I've listened to them all. Like my most recent guest was Shane Told. Shane is the singer of Silverstein, and he has one of the biggest ones in our circle, if you would call it our circle, right? He's got the lead singer syndrome, and I don't know, his show might be, I'm trying to think, is his the biggest of like the scene interviews? It's definitely up there.
Oh no, that would be our show, easily the biggest of all of them.
and 2 week notice, of course, obviously.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, we're the two biggest. No, I listened to your episode with Shane. Yes, that was good, and it actually made me want to check out Lead Singer Syndrome. It's on my to-do list. I'm like you, Dana. I don't have time for anything. But I do want to listen to everybody just to see what's going on,
Totally, man. I do also listen to This Was the Scene with Mike Doyle. He does a great podcast. You should talk to him if you're looking for guests. He's awesome. He's got a great show. And like you guys have a very unique, I don't know if niche is the word, but list of guests, a unique pool. So like you and I have some crossovers, and I'm sure you have crossovers with Mike Doyle's show or with Shane's show or Chris Swinney's show or whoever. But you definitely have this very unique pool of guests, which is what makes you stand out, in addition to, the dynamic between the two of you. So I like to think, we all have our own little corners in this wild, wild west podcasting world. And I know for a fact, I'm sure there's people that listen to my show and your show, whether or not it's crossover guests or separately, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, every show brings its own unique flavor, and that's why, there's room for everybody. And yeah, it's all good to me. So tell me, Dana, what difficulties do you have with your show? Like any kind of difficulties?
Yeah, dude, that's a good question. Well, one thing I was going to bring up and ask you guys, I don't want to derail your question, but before I forget,
Yes.
and this is kind of a difficulty as well, so it kind of ties in. But if I go back and listen to something from like an earlier episode from even a few months ago, I like cringe. I can't stand it. I hate it sometimes. And
Yeah.
and so I don't often do, but sometimes people will reach out to me and be like, "Oh, I heard the episode you did with, I don't know, so and so, like, and maybe it was 6 months ago." And they'll bring up something that we discussed, and I'm like, I don't even remember that. So I'll try to find it, and then I'll start to like listen to it, and I can't even get through it. I'm like, this is terrible. Like I, I don't know. I find that a struggle. I've taken old episodes down because maybe I didn't like the way I was interviewing at that time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been a rare thing. Or maybe I cut out the intro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I find it difficult to go back and listen to the older ones, with Aaron Tate from Minus the Bear. This is the second time I had him on. The first time I had him on was one of my earlier interviews, and it was a great talk. But he had one of those pair of headphones in, like I think it's the one that comes with like the iPhone, and it has the microphone piece like at chest level. So it was brushing up against his shirt the entire time, and I kind of noticed it back when we were actually talking, but I didn't say anything. So when I played it back, it fucked up the entire episode. And that was when I started doing more interviews, and like, I started gaining more listeners. And I know for sure I lost people back then. I guarantee it. Like I had someone, they left me a 5-star review, but then they wrote right on there, like, I don't know what that noise is. It sounds like Dana's taking notes or something. Like, sounds like he's scribbling on a piece of paper. I was like, well, thanks for the 5 stars, but it was valid feedback. It was Aaron's microphone. It just kept brushing. So I made sure he didn't have that microphone this time. But so I guess that's all part of the learning and growing process. But I was just curious if you guys listen back once in a while to some of the older ones, and you're like, oh, geez, what was I thinking? Or maybe you're just like, wow, I've gotten so much better since then.
Yeah, I do exactly what you do. If someone says, oh, I listened to this, it was really good, or, oh, I checked this old episode out, I'll go back and listen to it. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, in my opinion. I like to just ask my question and shut up and let the person answer now. And I think before I did a little too much, yeah, while they're talking, and I wouldn't like cut that out. And I used to sound a lot more low energy. Like you can hear the way I'm talking right now, I'm projecting and making sure I don't do the nasally thing where I fuck up words. But in the old episodes, I kind of talk like this, and I'm just talking and I'm like, wow, I need a cup of coffee or something. Tommy, do you listen to older ones at all?
I've gone back and listened to a handful of them. I actually listened to the first episode about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. The demo was better. And then I actually, this is such a sad thing to admit, but I was having a really bad day. I was not feeling well. Work was not going great. And I went back and I listened to the Anthony Green episode. And because there's a part where Anthony says some really nice shit about me. So I was like, I need to pick me up. Anthony's famous. Let me go listen to that for a second. I can have one of my old friends say something nice about me. So
that's nice.
Yeah, it was like a 12-minute segment. I just sat there and listened to it, and I turned it off, and I was like, all right, I actually do feel a little bit better. Maybe that's gonna be like my audio Prozac. And next time I feel shitty, I'll just put Anthony saying nice shit about me on.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but that's the only couple I've gone really like back to and listened to for any amount of time. But I also realize I don't like the sound of my voice. When I listen back, I'm like, is that really what I sound like? It doesn't register with me. Like it's a hard listen sometimes because I'm just go, ugh, like your voice is terrible.
It was really hard to get used to the sound of my voice, but I've been editing the show for about 2 years now, so I'm used to it. It's fine. As long as I don't mess up words, I'm good. I like to like really pronunciate them and not mess them up. I'm like a perfectionist, you know?
Yeah, man, I'm the same way. I did get used to hearing my voice, but at first it was weird. And to be honest, I not even trying to like gloat or brag, but like one of the biggest compliments I get is people tell me they really like my voice, which and kind of like what you were just saying, Tommy. I never thought that about myself at all, but hearing that multiple times, you know what? It really lifts my spirits, and I don't even think about that part anymore.
I just realized a minute ago I said pronunciate. Is that even a word?
No, I didn't want to say
Oh,
anything because it
man.
was the irony was so delicious. I just didn't want to I kind of wanted to savor it for a second. Yeah, pronounce.
See, this is all I'm going to think about for the rest of the conversation now.
Pronounce.
You know what? I'm going to leave it in
It's okay.
because I'm lazy.
No, you're a perfectionist. You just said it.
I pronunciate. Tommy, I created a word like when you said brutality.
Yes, yeah. I think you combined enunciate and pronunciation into a new word.
Yeah. So I'm blazing new trails once again. How about that? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go. I was going to say
I'm just going to keep digging the hole until all the dirt falls in, and you never hear from me again.
There's a word for that. It's like one of those like English literature terms. I think it's called portmanteau. It's like when you take two words and kind of put them together to make a new word, and that's exactly what you just did.
Well, Dana, in addition to the 2 Week Notice podcast, you are also tour manager and official hype man for Piebald. Now, I didn't know Piebald had a hype man, but I was at Furnace Fest, Dana, and I saw you running around down there having fun and singing along and getting people going. I was like, they have a hype man.
Yeah.
They have a hype man. That is awesome. And I saw exactly what you were talking about. Everybody was having fun, smiling. It was a fantastic set. So tell us about your history with the band and how you became the official live hype man.
Okay, well, first of all, just a slight correction here. My number one job with Piebald is cowbell player. Okay. No, but yeah, geez. All right. I hope people aren't sick of this story because I'm sure some of these people have heard it a few times.
Well, we have not heard
Okay.
it, and we are the only people that matter.
You're right. All right.
Or you might say, we are the only friends we have. Hmm?
Ooh,
Huh?
I see what you did there.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So basically, in 2016, Piebald got back together after taking several years off from being a band, right? But they remained best friends. And in 2016, they played a couple shows in Boston at the Royale. Now, prior to this, like mid 2000s, they always had a cowbell player, which happened to be their tour manager. Okay. So it kind of comes full circle in a weird way. But if you have seen the DVDs or these DVDs came out in the mid 2000s, or if you saw them in concert back in the day, you might have seen their tour manager, Brian McGaffigan, up there playing the cowbell during the song The Stalker, which I also ended up kind of stalking them, which also makes it kind of come full circle. But basically, in 2016, when they got back together in Boston, I'm from the Boston area, so are they. So I kind of knew the guys, like just from going to shows, but I was always really shy. Like I would see them talking to people after the show and stuff. And sometimes I would say hi, maybe, but that was about it. And I was Facebook friends with Travis and Luke. So they knew who I was as a big fan and who came to a lot of shows and like maybe a nice guy, And then, so I'm like, nobody's playing the cowbell. Like that should be me. Because one time at a show, there was a small period of time where they would pull people up from the audience to like play cowbell, and my friend got picked, and he was right next to me, and I always wanted to be the one that got picked, and then they broke up, and I was like, damn. So fast forward a month after those shows in 2016 in Boston, they did a West Coast run. Now, in my mind at the time, dude, maybe those are their last shows ever. I don't know. So Piebald's my favorite band, dude, like ever. Like before I even started touring with them, they've just always been my favorite band in the world. So when they got back together, I was ecstatic for just maybe those reunion shows. So I bought tickets to all those shows on the West Coast, and they were with the band Limbeck. I don't know if you know Limbeck, but they're awesome too. So, dude, I was going to go to these shows either way. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to bring a cowbell. So, dude, I brought a cowbell. And, you know, I definitely hesitated because like it's kind of a fucking weird thing to do. It's like I didn't talk to the band. There was no opening for a cowbell player, you know. I just decided to bring a cowbell and I should have known in the airport that it was going to be weird. I put it in my suitcase, right? And I wish I took a picture of this, but I just didn't. Like in the moment, it was kind of a serious thing, you know, because it's like security, whatever. But it went through the fucking, because I only had a carry-on bag, right? So it went through the X-ray machine. You could just see this big fucking, it took up half my suitcase, dude. You could just see this big, you know, metal cowbell shaped thing in the X-ray. And the guy just looks at me. He's like, "Sir, can you can you step aside?" I already knew what it was gonna. He's like, what is this? And I was like, "Oh, it's a cowbell." So he reaches in, he takes it out, and he's just like, "It's a cowbell. Okay, carry on, sir. Never seen that one before." And so fast forward, I flew out. Long story short, dude, I showed up to their sound check in LA with a cowbell and some beers, and they thought it was awesome but weird, and it was awesome but weird, and they're awesome but weird. So it kind of, maybe that's why it's a match made in heaven. But they made me try out. They're like, "We got to make sure you can do this," and I've never been more nervous. Because I mean, I've done Boston Calling, which is like 40,000 people or something. I've done these festivals and bigger shows with them. I've never been more nervous than that moment when I was on stage with them at the Echo in Los Angeles. It was just them and the opening band Limbeck, and I was like shaking, dude. But I had practiced with like a pen on my knee. I listened to the Stalker like over and over the whole 6-hour flight just so I could get it right. And so even though I was like super nervous and shaky, I still nailed it. And then whatever, dude, it turned into me playing cowbell at the rest of their shows. And eventually they're like, "All right, we like this guy. Why don't you sell our merch?" And I was like, "Sure, I'd be honored," you know? And then fast forward, they needed a tour manager, and that was for the Dashboard tour. So they promoted me again to tour manager, and I've been tour manager, hype man, merch guy, cowbell player ever since.
That's a pretty incredible story. It's like awesome that you took the chance to transport a cowbell across the country just to show up and do this thing.
I mean, like I said, I was doubting myself because it's pretty ridiculous, but I mean, I probably would have regretted it if I didn't. And now looking at what it's turned into, you know, like you mentioned Furnace Fest, dude, I never would have even dreamt of doing Furnace Fest or even just being in a van with those guys. I remember the first time I like hopped in their van and I was like, wow, I'm in the van with Piebald. Or the first time I went backstage, it was just like, whoa, this is the green room. It was just all really cool to me. And it's still the coolest thing that's ever happened, you know, but so it's like a dream come true in a lot of ways. Cause I've always wanted to be, you know, a part of the scene, but I'm not a musician except for maybe a killer cowbell player from time to time. But, you know, I've just always had the love for the scene, the same love that you guys have. And so this is my weird little way of being a part of it. And it just so happens to be, I get to do it with my favorite band.
Wow. I love that. That is a great story. And we feel the same way because even though Tommy and I have been in bands, I don't feel like a band guy necessarily. So, you know, this show is like our contribution and part of being in the scene. And it sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing, which makes it even cooler. Absolutely,
man. And another band recently just recruited me. So this band they're called For the Best. They played Furnace Fest. They had like an earlier time slot, I think, on the same Sunday that Piebald played. But they're these younger kids. I say kids just because I'm older now. They're like 22 or so. And there's just this up and coming, I believe if you go to their Spotify, it says like pop punk hardcore. But basically, dude, like they're playing the So What Festival it's in Arlington, Texas in a few months. And I'm going to go down and play the cowbell for them and like hype shit up. And maybe I'll meet people and get some podcast interviews or something. Who knows, you know?
Nice. Now, do you have to clear this with Piebald? Did they get possessive of you, their cowbell guy?
No, if anything, they love that I love doing it, and they encourage me to go and work with other bands. They're trying to get rid of me. No. No, but they can see what I'm doing, and they know that because, you know, Piebald isn't full time, obviously, you know, like they once were, and they know that I want to get into this world. So, for example, our sound guy, his name is Chris Johnson. we just recruited him for the last tour back in December for the holiday shows. But he's also Caven sound guy, and he plays bass in the band Deaf Heaven. I don't know if you got them at Furnace Fest. They're great.
Oh, yes. Nice. You sound so calm on your podcast. You have the great podcaster voice, but then there's this other side of you that is the hype man cowbell player for Piebald. Yeah, I mean, are you like quiet in person but a maniac on the stage? How do you deal with the two different roles?
No, I'm pretty. If you ask any of my friends, I think I have a big personality. I can be obnoxious. I mean, I'm a little bit older now, but I could be that like, I don't know. I think I'm a natural hype man. I'm a really positive guy. I always have been, and I think it aligns with my personality. I'm a little bit more calm now that I'm 36. But
oh, you're only 36?
Yeah.
Wow, we're like 40. We're old,
dude. Jeez. Do you have your retirements planned yet?
Tommy does, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm 100. Yeah, I'm not 40 yet. I got like a month and a half.
Oh, okay. That's so weird. I just turned 40, so 36 sounds 20 to me now.
Well, happy birthday, dude.
Thank you.
That's a big one.
So, are you out there the entire set running around, hyping things up?
I am. Yeah. I mean, I think you said you saw Furnace Fest. Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, here's the deal. Like, it started when Piebald does a headlining show. I'm just in the crowd because that's what I do with Piebald. I want to see their whole set. So I'd be in the crowd just like a normal Piebald show. We don't usually play, like for a headliner, we don't usually play these shows with like the barricade in between,
Mm-hmm.
But then like when I think the first festival I did with them would have been Boston Calling. So I'm like, I can't go into that crowd. I'm going to get lost. I'll never make it back. So, I mean, like Boston Calling's a huge festival, dude. So I'm like, all right. That was when I realized during festivals or shows with that big barricade, that's like my space, I guess, unless I'm on the stage. But, most of the songs I'm not. So that was kind of how it turned into that. So like Furnace Fest, for example, I wasn't going to like jump over the barricade and hop in like the pit. I don't think there was a pit for the Piebald set anyway, but that's why I just use that space during shows like that. Or for Dashboard, for example, we did a full US tour opening for them. And, I'm fully aware that most of 5% of the crowd is there for Dashboard. They don't want some asshole like me running around, like screaming Piebald lyrics in their face. The reason they're all smushed up to the front is because they want to get as close to Chris Carrabba as they possibly can be. Makes sense. So that's another example where, and there's a barricade at those shows. So I'll kind of like be in that little space for those shows too. So it depends on the show, but also now since COVID, I can't be in the crowd like that anymore anyway. Cause if I run in the crowd, get COVID from somebody and, get in the van, I could be getting those guys sick. So it's a little different now anyway with like the COVID or the post-COVID shows, if you will. Not that COVID still isn't a thing, but you know what I mean.
Right. And when you're in that pit area, is security okay with that? Do they ever give you a hard time?
That's a good question. There have been a couple of times where it has not been okay. And I try to always make it a point during or before the show, I should say, like I'll let them know, like, cause I'll just be like, hey, hey, what's up, guys? I'll just go up to them like before or as the doors are opening or something. And I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? My name's Dana. I show them my laminate, my tour credentials. And I'm like, I just want you to know I'm with Piebald. I do a little running around like hype man kind of vibe. I just wanted to like let you know so it's not like weird and make sure you're cool with it. And there were a couple venues on the Dashboard run that I want to say the Fillmore and San Fran and maybe like one or two more where, because I use like the steps that they use to like pull people who are like crowd surfing or like, they have the little steps to just look at the crowd and shit. I use those to like just kind of hype people up and stuff. So there were a couple venues that were like, yeah, no, you can't do that. And I was like, okay, but I just still kind of ran around and did my thing anyway, but I'm always respectful of security. There was one show recently. I'm trying to remember what show it was. It might have been, we recently opened for Newfound Glory in Buffalo. And I think it was this show. And I got like surrounded. I ran around. They let me do it for like a whole song or two. And then all of a sudden, dude, they like kind of like pulled me off the thing, and they're like, who are you? Let me see your credentials. What's your deal, buddy? Like, because they thought I was just some like psycho fan. They thought I was like that guy who runs around the football field streaking or something. Like they almost tackled me. It was kind of weird. Yeah. It was funny though.
Whoa. Did you clear it up?
Yeah, I was like, dude, my pass is right here, man. I was like, I'm in Piebald. Come on. It was fine.
And does it ever get weird figuring out what to do for the whole set? Like, I'd be so neurotic. I'd be like, oh, like I already did this. What do I do next? I'm tired. I have to stand, but I can't stand. I'm up here. Like, do you ever get into any of that territory?
Not at all. No. Dude, because I know all their songs, so I'm singing them, or I know there's a lot of the songs, like Monkey versus the Robot has a couple of spots where there's claps, and I'll run up on the stage and do the claps, or King of the Road has the same thing, or Fear and Loathing, I try to get the crowd to sway, or the Stalker or whatever, I'm playing the cowbell, or I'm just singing the songs. Yeah, that never even crosses my mind not during a Piebald set anyway. Or because I also try to get some pictures for them to like use for the socials and stuff too. So if anything, there's not enough time.
Now, I was listening to your podcast, and you mentioned that you have a ski condo in New Hampshire.
That's right. I got a ski condo up in New Hampshire, kid.
How? Where? Are you rich?
How I did purchase it. Where it is. The Attitash is called Mountain. I mean, wait, I just said that back. The mountain is called Attitash. Wow. And I'm not rich. No, I did work in the corporate world for like 10 years. Like when I first started touring with Piebald, it was when I had my corporate job. I mean, I was making good money, and I bought the condo at that time, but I rent it out like on weekends during ski season now, and sometimes during the summer too, because they got summer stuff going on as well. But yeah, man, I try to use it as much as I can because I like to snowboard. Oh,
nice. So wait, you had a corporate job. You were working in the corporate world. Did you leave that for the life that you are pursuing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to call it that. Because the timing was interesting. So yeah, I left the job, and that was when I went to Europe for like the 4 months or whatever. And that was when I started the podcast. I came home, I started bartending, and I guess let me put it this way. The reason I left the job, again, it was really, really good money, but I was just miserable, man. I was just not happy. So I kind of planned my exit, and I tried to quit, and they promoted me, and they gave me like, they promoted me, and they transferred me to another area, and I refused. I was like, no, like I'm trying to quit. I don't want to be here. But they gave me a promotion and a raise. They gave me $12,000 as a bonus. Whoa. Yeah, and I put that down as a down payment on a condo in Salem, Massachusetts, right? So those are the two condos that I bought, but I bought them specifically, those units, those properties, knowing that I'd be able to rent them out. So I rent out the one in Salem, like I have a tenant who lives there year round. And then the one up at the ski place, I rent that out when I can. And I said, all right, if I'm still miserable in 2 years, I'm out. But in the meantime, I'm going to save up. And that's exactly what I did. And almost 2 years to the date, I left. And that was when I went to Europe, and I came back, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know I'm not going back to that bullshit. So so where I live now, it's my parents' basement, but it's an in-law apartment. So, nice. I have my own, it's like my own little studio apartment. I got a kitchen, I got a bathroom, I got my own entrance. So, but I technically live in my parents' basement, but I don't care. They're cool as hell, but point being, I was like, well, what do I want to do? I need to get some money, right? I just spent 4 months and thousands of dollars in Europe. So I'm like, all right. And where my parents are at is on a pond, and on the same pond, there's a bar. And I have some bartending experience. So I went over to the bar where I currently work. It's like, you guys need a bartender? They're like, yeah. So in the summer, dude, I kayak to work, It's like literally, I walk out my back door, I sit in my kayak, I paddle to work, I tie up the kayak, I walk up the docks ramp right into the restaurant. And point being, dude, I don't know what I left for exactly. But so I start working at that bar, and then like 2 months later, the Dashboard and Piebald tour got announced. So I told the bar, I was just like, hey, I thought they were going to hate me, because I had just started working there. I was like, I'm not going to be here in February, just so you know. Like, I'm going to be on tour. And you know what? The owner, he couldn't have been cooler. He's like this hippie surfer dude. He was just like, dude, that's so awesome. And I do a good job while I'm there. So he handed me an envelope on my last day before that tour, $500. He's like, here's some beer money. Like, have a great time. We'll see you when you get back. We'll miss you,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
But it was a really tough time though, because I got back from tour and I connected with their tour manager. His name is Jack Funk, the Dashboard tour manager, which coolest name in the world, Jack Funk. This guy Fax. This guy's the fucking man, dude. He's a legend. He tour managed Rush back in the day for like 10 years, and he's toured with like Bob Marley, and like this guy is just an absolute legend. So I really just tried to watch him and learn from him as much as I could. And he hooked me up with this network there's this website. It's called BobNet, and it's kind of like a Craigslist website, but it's just for roadies in the touring world. So not for musicians. It's for tour managers and lighting people and guitar techs and bus drivers, all those kind of like behind the scenes jobs. So I'm finally like, all right, I'm gonna get in on this really awesome world that this is what I've been trying to do. And then everything shut down. So
this is pretty incredible. You left behind this corporate job that you didn't like, and you hook up with your favorite band in a pretty incredible way. You're touring with them now. You're performing with them live. But do you ever think about the fact that you own 2 condos, but you still live in your parents' basement?
Yeah, I do all the time. I'm a little insecure about it, like at times. That's why when I said it before, I'm like, yeah, I live in my parents' basement, but I feel like I always have to justify it. I'm like, but I do stuff. I have condos and stuff, like I planned this.
No, I'm just making a stupid joke. But listen,
that was funny.
To be serious, I'm inspired by your story because you're doing what you love now, and those are the stories I love the most. And I don't know, it's just pretty incredible how you hooked up with the band. And I still work a corporate job myself, but on top of that, I'm finally doing all the stuff I've always wanted to do. So I'm really happy about it, and I'm really happy that you're doing everything you're doing now.
Thanks, man. I mentioned earlier, Chris, who was our sound guy, right? He also was the bassist in Deaf Heaven.
Yes.
And I had an opportunity to tour with them. They're on a US tour right now, dude. And, I had the job. It was mine. And when it rains, it pours, boys, because at the same exact time, I had a podcasting opportunity with a pretty big podcasting company. Do you know Jake Brennan? He was in Cast Iron Hike, and he hosts the podcast Disgraceland.
Yes.
So he has a podcasting company called Double Elvis, and someone who like works under him, like kind of recruited me to apply for this position. Literally, I'm telling you, I got a call from Deaf Heaven's manager the same day that this dude hit me up about this job, and the podcast is launching in a couple of weeks. So there was just literally no way I could have done it at the same time. So I turned down that gig at the chance that I might get this other gig, which I did not get it. I just found out. It came down to me and one other person, I was told. And I was told the tiebreaker was the fact that this dude like has his own studio and shit. So obviously, which is okay, dude. I've only been podcasting for a year, and I really took that as a sign of encouragement, if anything. I wasn't even bummed about it. Like, the fact that I was in the running and came that close in the first place, I was really proud of myself. But, it just told me that I need to prepare better and, do some more work as far as like the audio engineering side of things,
Wow. That's incredible. It's a lot of good opportunities, huh?
Yes, but the fact that they came up at the same time, it was just like, damn. And I had a really hard time, when I turned down the Deaf Heaven gig. It was just like, I did not take that decision lightly. I bounced it off a couple of the guys in Piebald and a few other people. And Andy from Piebald, he gave me great advice. He's like, dude, more road gigs will come up, man. He's like, I know it's that you really wanted to do this, but he's like, if I were you, I'd go for the podcast one. You'll get more road gigs,
I think that was the right choice. You had to take the chance.
Yeah, exactly.
What were you doing previously in the corporate world?
So I was an executive for a franchisee for Panera Bread. So I was a director of baking, and I was overseeing 64 Panera Bread locations in New England.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, great people. I learned a lot. Like I said, I was making good money. I was making six figures, and it enabled me to buy a couple condos and all that stuff. But it's weird. I went to culinary school, and the thing that I hated the most was baking. I was like, I just got these classes out of the way, and I was just like, I cannot wait to get these out of the way because I will never do anything related to baking for the rest of my fucking life. And then I was the director of baking for 64 fucking bakeries.
That's a pretty cool job title, though. Director of baking.
Oh yeah.
I actually have a question about bartending. Did you ever get shithoused at the bar and then not be able to kayak home?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I did fall in the water once. Well, no, all right, I didn't fall in the water. All right, so my biggest fear has always, because getting into a kayak is actually it's not easy.
Nerve-wracking. Yeah, that shit sucks.
And I always have drinks at the end of my shift, and where I tie up the kayak. So the main feature of this restaurant is its patio and waterfront dining. So, when I'm leaving, I get an audience because they're like, where's this guy going? Then they realize that I work there and they're like, well, that's crazy. But one time, my biggest fear was always falling into the water as I was climbing into it. I didn't fall in, but I had a hoodie on because this was like September because I remember football was on the next day. And I had a zip up hoodie. So like, it's got like those like half pockets on each side of the zipper. And I bent over to get in the kayak and my cell phone fell into the pond. And it was still lit up because I had just been looking at it. So I kind of just watched the screen float down to the bottom. No. And it was probably like 10 to 12 feet deep in this spot, which I learned the hard way. Dude, I thought for half a second and I took off my hat and my shoes and I just jumped right in the water. And this was probably 8:00 at night. I had got out of work at like 5 or 6. So I had a few and it was dark out. But they couldn't really see. They thought I fell into the pond because they just like saw me walk out and it was dark and then they saw the splash. And it was deeper than I thought it was, dude. And like, if I didn't get it in this one grab, I wouldn't have got it. Like by the time I got up, I was like, but people had started running out onto the dock because they thought that I was drowning. And I was like, it's okay. Just get my phone because I'm in fantasy football. I'm in like 10 leagues. So I wouldn't have been able to set all my lineups, man. It was just, I was
priorities.
freaking out.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, let's recap, folks. Here's what we're going to do. Number one, we want to listen to Dana's 2-week notice podcast, right?
Yes.
Yes, that is right.
There you go. Yes. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. It's on all the major podcast platforms, right?
Yes, that is also right.
Yes. And we're going to catch Piebald live so we can see Dana do his thing, play some cowbell, and get everybody all worked up, right?
That's right. We are playing a really sick show. If you're in the New England area, June 4th, it's at the Worcester Palladium Outdoors. We're playing it with Newfound Glory, 4 Years Strong, Bayside, The Movie Life, Be Well, and A Loss for Words, bunch of other bands. It's going to be like a really sick show. And we had to postpone a show in New York over the winter, one of those holiday shows because of COVID. So we're trying to make up that show, hopefully around that same time if we can, but that's still in the works.
Well, Dana, we just want to say thank you for coming on the show tonight. This was great. It was a wonderful way to celebrate 2 years of our podcast with another fellow podcaster, and it's been awesome getting to know you. So thank you so much.
Dude, it's the pleasure's all mine. Keith and Tommy, thank you guys so much. Keep up the great work and congrats on 2 years. You guys are crushing it, man. Just keep doing it.
There you have it, folks. Dana Bollen. That was a really great conversation. It was awesome to talk to him. I really like his story, Tommy. He's working a corporate job. He doesn't like it. So he brazenly makes the decision to just go to this Piebald show and be their cowbell guy. And he tries out and he nails it. And now he's living the life he wants to live and doing what he wants to do. He's touring. He almost had that gig with the podcasting company. Yeah. Really nice guy. I'm glad that we're in touch with him now. Really great stories. I could think of no better way to celebrate this 2-year anniversary show.
Oh, absolutely. And on top of that, like you said, what an inspiration when people just go, yeah, fuck my regular job. Like,
Yes.
that's so, there is so much in there that I just go, I can't imagine having the guts to walk away from a 6-figure salary to go, I'm going to do what I want to do and we'll see how it goes.
I couldn't do it unless it was taking up my entire life and I didn't get to do anything that I wanted to do. Like if I got a promotion at my job and it took up all my time and they were like, well, you can't do the podcast or the band anymore. There's no time. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. The reason I like my job is because I have time to do all the things that I love and I get to work from home.
Yeah, the flexibility that I have with having most of the entire summer off and being able to travel with my kids and, really kind of like be around. And also I'm done work early. So when it comes to like, if I have to go to soccer practice or gymnastics or dance recitals, like I don't miss stuff. I just don't miss those things. And I know that, when people have those kind of more engaging, more demanding jobs, they have to kind of let some of those things fall by the wayside. And I always think about this, and not to be bleak, but I always think like, my dad passed away when he was 41. And it's like on his timeline, I really only have another year or so. Like, and I want to make sure that I'm around and my kids see me present and see me in, playing with them and making memories and doing fun stuff that, God forbid something should ever happen to me. They can go, oh, do you remember that time daddy did this? Do you remember that time daddy made, all the stuff that I, crazy, ridiculous things that I've done. And so I think that's a huge part of this. And I love the fact that we set aside time beyond the interviews just to kind of talk about what's going on with our lives. It is vaguely therapeutic, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's important. It's important because not everybody has that. So if we're doing it with each other, Tommy, it helps us. And I think maybe people listening to us do it can help them in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have a really, really good job right now, go ahead and quit it. No, don't do that. No, don't.
I mean, if you want to. Now, with Dana's job, I would imagine there's a ton of travel and going to different Panera Breads and having to take care of stuff. And that does not sound like a fun time. I've lived that life where I'm traveling constantly and I wasn't making 6 figures. I'll tell you that much. So F that.
Yeah, that's a really hard pill to swallow, is that like I know people that travel for work, but they're compensated very well for it, because I in my head, traveling, especially plane, like if I was like, they were like, hey, you got to rent a car and drive to Baltimore. Cool. Got it. But plane travel, being in an airport, delays, rentals, I hate that. I hate it. Everything about it makes me nervous, anxious, and more in the line of like, get me to where I'm supposed to be. Like, stop with the middle part where everything's an inconvenience. Stop. Just get me where I need to be. But it is what it is. Some people enjoy that. I certainly am not one of them.
You know what we didn't talk about, Tommy? This is episode 108 of the show. Can you believe that?
Shout out to Mike Shaw.
I can't believe my mind was blown that I saw that the 2-year anniversary show was episode 108 and I didn't even plan it or anything. It just happened. I think that's a major sign of good things to come. Your thoughts, Tommy?
I just love the fact that we constantly look for 108 and things and then we find it.
No, we don't look for it. It just happens. That's the whole thing.
That is actually, do you remember when Mike came to interview at the hotel? He had a receipt with him. Do you remember that? And the receipt was, I forget how it came up, but the total at the bottom was $108.00. And he was like,
now I remember that. And when we interviewed Mike Mig, his interview was 1 hour and 8 minutes long.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. See, folks, this is a recurring number, and it's like a whole thing in our group chat that we talk about all the time. So it's kind of crazy that this is episode 108. I'm just saying.
Things, they're happening.
Things. Well, thank you again, Dana, for coming on the show. That was awesome. Looking forward to talking to him more in the future. Now, speaking of the future, Tommy, We have reflected on the history of our show and a little bit of 2021 and signing to Iodine Recordings and all that fun stuff. What are you looking forward to in 2022? Now, it can be about the show, in life, or both.
I'll start with me personally. What I'm really looking forward to in 2022 is the weather getting better and us being able to be outside again, being able to take my daughter skateboarding in the mornings. And I'm also looking forward to really making sure that, if I to get this new position, that I'm doing really well at it, and I'm, serving the kids the best I can and making sure that everybody's taken care of and people's needs are being met. And then personally, I really feel like I've been in a great groove with eating well and not getting hammered drunk and exercising. And I want to make sure I continue with that pattern and keep all those things in line that allow me to still do those things. Like I make sure that my time is kind of set up in a way that allows me to exercise at night, allows me to make sure I'm eating well when I, plan my meals out. But for the show, I want to just continue the same. I'm not saying that I don't want it to change, but I don't want my attitude to ever change about it. There's been times where I felt like, I get down here and I feel like as I'm getting on, I'm like, this is such a chore. I can't believe this. And then 2-3 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm so into it and so happy and so grateful. And it really does help you put life in perspective at, we talk about things that happened 20, 30 years ago, and we just go, this is such a great thing that we're a part of. And I really hope we continue with what we're doing. So that's it. That's what I got. What do you hope for?
Okay, personally, wow, I'm really drawing a blank. I can't think of anything. I'm pretty happy right now. I would like my band to play a show in 2022. How about that? I would like us to get to that point. Everything else is fine. And for the show, I just want to keep doing the best show that we can. We've been getting some great guests. I love the format. I think we're improving. I just want the show to be the best that it can be, and for us to continue getting great guests, and for us to continue doing it. Because like you said, Tommy, it can feel like a chore. Not that I don't want to do it or I don't like it or anything. I just have incredible anxiety. And sometimes when we record 2 or 3 in a week, there's just a lot of pressure because I'm nervous, but I love it. I would like to have less anxiety somehow too. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but one thing at a time. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think the best thing we do is we've always kept it fun and kept it in a way that, again, that thematic idea of it was something special, and we want to make sure we continue to kind of catalog things that happen, and also continue to look at bands that are, kind of taking that same, people that the torch were passed to and moving forward with that same progress. I love that we get to be a part of things that we were, bands that we loved a long time ago, but also we get to talk to bands that are doing new and incredibly progressive things now.
Yes, you bring up a good point, Tommy. We talk to the classics and we talk to the new and exciting upcoming artists. We cover it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have anything. I don't know.
Yeah, me either. Look, I think that's it. I don't want to do a whole retrospective on all the guests and all this stuff. Where the episodes are. If you haven't listened to them, go listen to them. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. But special thanks to all of our listeners. We see you every week, and the folks who are reposting us every Monday, and the new people coming in. We see you, we hear you, we appreciate you. We do this because of you. When we get nice letters that people said that we helped them through a tough time, our conversations, that's really the best thing in the world. Thank you to everybody who's been on the show. Thank you again to Casey and Iodine Recordings. He's really taken us to the next level. And I talk to Casey almost every day, and he's always helping us out with stuff. So, Casey, thank you. And I think that's it, Tommy.
I think that's a great way to end. Positivity, look towards the future. We're good to go.
We're keeping it positive, and we're keeping it moving. There you go.
Love it.
All right. So that's it. Folks, we're back Monday with another brand new episode and a brand new guest. So thanks everybody for listening, and until next time.